Hey guys, welcome to finally another trailer review. I think this may be my last one in this massive series of trailer reviews that I've been doing consistently. And finally, the trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming has been released. It's been all over the internet, all over YouTube. Everyone's talking about it. So I figured I'd join in the conversation as per usual. Now, everyone's been really looking forward to this, I think, specifically because Tom Holland and the Spider-Man introduction in Civil War really stole the show. That was probably one of the most popular things about Civil War, and this just adds to that hype. I'm very excited to talk about this trailer, so let's get into it. Now, probably one of my favorite moments of the entire trailer was in that sort of opening sequence when there's a bank robbery, ATM robbery sort of happening, and all the robbers have various Avengers masks on. One has Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, and Thor. And Spider-Man shows up and sort of like this casually he's sort of leaning against the wall. It's a very funny moment, and he's like, hey, you guys aren't the actual Avengers. And it's just some funny moment that I think Spider-Man's been missing. He had sort of like these quippy, funny jokes in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 mainly, but it really didn't like connect. Here it really connects because not only does it connect with Spider-Man being sort of quippy and funny teenage kid, but at the same time, it connects to all the other MCU films and like the Avengers and all that technology, all the things that are happening in Civil War, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, all that stuff. It connects it all, and it just creates this funny moment that I think Spider-Man has been lacking for several movies. Another thing that I really liked about this trailer was that we get some everyday Peter Parker in high school sort of moments with him and his friend Ned, which I'm not sure if he's going to end up being like a major character later on or if he's like this totally different character. I'm not entirely sure yet, but it's like he's this average kid and he's struggling with being a hero and being an average kid. He still has crushes on girls. He still has to deal with homework. He still has to pay attention in class, even though he gets some kind of distracted at one point watching some scenes from Civil War where he was fighting Giant Man. So there's just some things that it shows that real struggle. They kind of showed that struggle in the first Spider-Man series from Sam Raimi, a little bit in Amazing Spider-Man, where he has this struggle between like hero life and real life of going to school and all this other stuff, but it's sort of in the background. But putting him in high school, we get actually several scenes of him in school, which I think is pretty bold because we haven't seen that a whole lot, and it's such a main staple as who the character is. That's how people connect with him a lot, is he's just this average guy, and that's why I like the addition of that in this trailer, because he really does give that feel that he's just an average kid, but he's got some extraordinary powers. One of the things that I didn't like about this trailer was the addition of so much Tony Stark and Iron Man. Don't get me wrong, I completely understand why he's in this film. He's basically going to be Peter's mentor, giving him more technology, more suits, more this, more that, but I'm just not a fan of it. I like Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man, but I don't necessarily feel he needs to be that glue to bring Spider-Man into the MCU. We sort of got that in Civil War. I don't feel like it needs to be so present, especially for a first trailer. Spider-Man is a strong enough character on his own, and he does so much. I think the appeal to Tom Holland Spider-Man in Civil War was enough. I don't think we need that Robert Downey Jr. element to really bring it all together. I know that's going to put more butts in seats, but I feel like Spider-Man has so much going for him on his own, it's not even necessary. He'll sell enough tickets just putting Spider-Man in the title. We don't need to see Iron Man or so much of Tony Stark, in my opinion. I think it was just a little bit too much for a trailer, but I still feel like it's an integral part to where they're going with the character in the greater scheme of the MCU. But back to something positive, especially sort of regarding Tony Stark, is we get a scene of Spider-Man, or I guess Peter Parker, crawling on the ceiling of his room, and his friend actually sees him and he's like, oh my god, you're Spider-Man. He's like, what? No, I'm not. But what's interesting me the most about that scene is how he sort of takes his suit off. It's not like that super spandex that we saw in Spider-Man, like the Sam Raimi ones, or Amazing Spider-Man 2. He sort of taps his middle spider on his chest, and it sort of just, not necessarily deflates, but it sort of like expands a little bit more so he can get out of it, and it slides off of his body. So when he pushes it again, when he has it on, it's going to contract. And I thought that was super smart. I really liked that. I thought that that was the most clever use of how he's going to put on and take off the suit, rather than just having to pull these spandex all the way up his legs and squeeze into it. Kind of like this weird transition that they never really showed in the first movies, but they alluded to by having like the suit be like this big, but obviously because it's spandex it had to fit all over his body so tightly. But I like how it contracts on his body. I think that was super clever. I know that has to do with Tony Stark and his technology for the suits and stuff, but I think that was such a cool moment that I didn't expect in this trailer, and I'm looking forward to seeing that moment on the big screen. Now, of course, we have to talk about the villain. Now, the main villain is really going to be the Vulture, who's going to be played by Michael Keaton. We get a couple quick looks of the full suit, the wings, everything like this sort of helmet. My only complaint, I'm really down for Michael Keaton playing this villain, but my only complaint has to be that it's very reminiscent for me of when Harry became the Green Goblin in Spider-Man 3, where he had like that snowboard sort of situation with those hover blades things in the board. I really was not a fan of it then, and I'm kind of not a fan of how it's used now, as far as like the jetpack thing. But I guess it sort of makes sense. They didn't really want to make it too much, I guess, like Sam Wilson's sort of jetpack, but at the same time they want to make it more unique to the Spider-Man character, as well as modern times, because this is set in modern times and not like in some unknown time like in the first couple of Spider-Man movies, where you didn't really know what time period they were in. But this one is very reminiscent that we are in the now, that this isn't being set in another time or another place. This is happening now as a part of the MCU in modern times with crazy technology, not only from Tony Stark, but also with whatever Vulture developed. I'm sure Vulture may have some aspect to do with Tony, and that's how he is getting revenge, is against Spider-Man. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to play out, but I do think that's going to be interesting to see how it is played out, especially with such a strong character actor like Michael Keaton. And speaking of villains, in the international trailer especially, we get some better looks at the Shocker, which I think is going to be really interesting. We don't really get very good looks at him, so I don't really want to talk about it here, but he's not going to be a main villain for sure, but he's definitely going to have some little aspects. Maybe it's just like a quick little villain on the way to Vulture or after Vulture. I'm not entirely sure. Or maybe Vulture will team up with him somehow. I don't know how it's going to work, but I don't think he's going to be the big bad. The Vulture is definitely going to be the big bad. You don't get Michael Keaton to play a character like that unless he's going to be the main villain. Also in this trailer, we get a very, very fast shot of Donald Glover. Now, he's sort of standing in the background while this guy is testing this weapon. So I'm not entirely sure who he's playing. It's not even known on IMDb who Donald Glover will be playing. I'm still hoping for a major character along the lines of Miles Morales. It's looking less and less like it, but I'm still holding out some hope until I see the final film. But I do hope he becomes some type of major character by the end, and maybe will be teased for something maybe in the future. I'm not entirely sure how it'll work, but I'm really excited to see Donald Glover in this film, and I hope he does a great job. Not only is whatever he's playing, but hopefully he'll be an integral part to what's happening in the future. And of course, we get that sort of money shot of when Spider-Man does a flip over the helicopter. He spreads his arms out and he has those spider web wing situations going on underneath his arms. I think that's a fantastic nod to the original comics. I was never really a fan of the web wings, but I appreciate the nod and it being in this film. I think it's going to be very useful, especially going up against a villain like the Vulture who can fly and maneuver various angles throughout a city. So I think that'll play a pretty decent part as to how Spider-Man maybe defeats him or gets away from Vulture at some point. So I think I appreciate that it's definitely in there. I just think that it was maybe unnecessary, but it was definitely a big moment that got a lot of people excited. And of course, we can't not talk about one of the final moments of this trailer, where we get the shot of Spider-Man hanging his webs against like two sides of this boat that's been shot by like some electricity or something in the previous shot. So the boat is splitting in half, it looks like. Spider-Man is hanging on with both webs on both sides, trying to keep it together and save these people. And it's a great shot, don't get me wrong, it looks fantastic. But it's very reminiscent, reminds me very much of when Spider-Man was trying to stop the train in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. Looks very similar. I hope they sort of don't do that same situation where he gets so tired and then he falls down and all the people save him and they take his mask off. He's just a kid. I hope that's not how it happens, because that was a very special moment, I think, in that movie. Hope they don't try and recreate that. but it does look visually stunning when it's going to be on the big screen, I'm sure, and it's going to be a very exciting moment to watch in the theater. And of course, we still have to talk about that epic shot at the very end of this trailer when Spider-Man and Iron Man are heading off to something. It doesn't really say what, but they're going to fight something together, and it looks pretty badass. But at the same time, I still have to complain there was too much Tony Stark and too much Iron Man as a whole in this trailer. I get that he's a part of this film. He's part of the MCU. He's probably the main centerpiece of the whole MCU. But at the same time, I think Spider-Man is such a strong character, it wasn't necessary for him to be in that much of the trailer. If you had cut Tony Stark's stuff in half and maybe put in that little Iron Man, like the part where he's talking to him in the limo in the beginning of the trailer, and the part where he's flying off with him at the end of the trailer, would have been the perfect blend of just enough Tony Stark to keep me interested for this movie. I'm still going to see it, but I think after Civil War, Tom Holland sort of proved in like the 10-20 minutes that he's in that film that he's going to be strong enough to carry this whole film by himself and doesn't necessarily need so much Tony Stark. But I do appreciate that super epic action shot as they're flying and swinging away. It just looks so badass, and it makes me more excited to see this film. So if it hasn't been made clear enough as of yet, I'm super excited to see this movie. The trailer definitely has me intrigued. Both the international and US trailers both are very, very interesting, and I can't wait to see this movie when it comes out in July 7th, I believe. So it's very, very exciting. I like Spider-Man a lot. I really like Spider-Man from Tom Holland, which I was really surprised. I didn't want to like it when I heard about it in Civil War, but once you see it, it just catches your attention and you just sucks you in. And I can't wait for his standalone movie, not only for the action shots that we sort of got reminiscent of Civil War, but the Peter Parker stuff. He seems like a great Peter Parker, and I can't wait to see how he interacts with his friends at school and all these other characters and dynamics, how he's going to balance that out. I'm really excited for it, and he captures Spider-Man and Peter Parker the best, I think. I think Tobey Maguire might have been a little too old. Andrew Garfield was a little bit more emo-ish. Not emo, he wasn't emo, but he was a little bit more dramatic about it, I think, in that whole vision of Spider-Man. But this one is fun. It's bringing Spider-Man back to the MCU, back into Marvel Studios, which I think is really adding that life that it was missing when it was over in Sony. But now that they're partners together, it's going to be even more epic than ever. So again, this film comes out in July 7th, so I'm really excited for that. It's going to be a great summer movie. Let me know. I'm going to leave the link to the trailer, both trailers actually, in the description down below, so you guys can check those out. Be sure to come back and let me know what you think of this trailer. I'm super excited for it. A little bit too much Tony Stark and Iron Man for my opinion, but I definitely cannot wait for this version of Spider-Man. Hopefully this video does not get buried by all the other videos and reviews and all that stuff, hype about Spider-Man on YouTube and the internet. So hopefully you will get a chance to see it. But guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
Oh, that was awesome.